record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. The whites were sitting in the west stands. And the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
This is Ryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Lab. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Lab, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
YT Productions.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, you gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that SWAC. that MEAC. And let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU.
Welcome, Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Welcome to episode 94 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for the show, covering all things institutions, large and small, from NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCUH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Get used to hearing that Hall of Famer status. We'll have another one on the show today as well. Mike Washington, as you see, you're not seeing him on the screen as he's off on vacation. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess he's continuing his break, Turkey Day break. Somebody get to have extended Thanksgiving break. What kind of life is this? But on a serious note, he's taking care of business. But we're gonna always throw him under the bus and give him some love with that. But we'll make him proud, as you know we will, in terms of what's going on. But as we continue to get it on, we're gonna jump right into it, because today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Today's show will be a good one, as we will be discussing the latest in HBCU sports. Later, we will talk about sports history and take a deep dive a little bit. We're going to go in with coach and SWAC basketball team, as well as SIAC, talk about that information, CIAA, MEAC, independent programs. As we have got sports back in the house, we got women's and men's basketball. They're actually playing. So we'll talk about that to some upcoming basketball season. And now we're really in the thralls of it. Upcoming conference play, we'll see where that may go. Former Alabama A&M University basketball coach, Hall of Famer, and historian, as I'm giving him his new title, obviously legendary Coach Vann Pettaway, as I like to still talk in reference to him. He'll be on the show later. With that, let's jump in here as we do at this time. We'll look at some HBCU news of the day. But as we get to that, let me see if I can get and give some kudos to our great fans out there that's jumped on early in the show. Give us some love of what's going on in here. We got Frank Nelson, Jalen Riley. AD Drew is in the house, as you know. Byron and AD of the Sports Rap, BCSN. Check them out as they give you some great HBCU sports news. They were fascinating with that breakdown they did in terms of the basketball teams. All up and down at every level, NAIA, the NCAA Division II to the NCAA Division I, men's and women's. Check out the top 5 rankings. They do it uniquely. They talk about HBCU Division I programs, Division II programs, and NAIA programs. Top 5, men's and women. Very fascinating to see what that looked like. Jay Mack is in the house. Good evening, fellas, boy.
Jay Mack.
Photographer extraordinaire. Check out his books, man. He got some big-time books y'all need to get out there. See if I can pull one of them out there and give him some love. Tabletop. This is coffee table. This type of season, you getting some gifts. You might want to give some of your HBCU fans some love out there. Here's another one. Just power pack. Oh, man.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Classic
I like
life.
that.
Man,
That's
I
nice.
got this. I can't keep it out of Deuce's hands, boy. He just, I had to go back and buy another one. But I tell you, they got what they doing for his own. Then we got Chris Tucker, Virginia Union in the house. CIAA repping for sure. Kay Johnson always making sure that she gets in here and gives us much love. Good evening.
Hey.
You ready for the lecture? Let's go. Jackson State Finest, one of the ones out there getting it. Thomas White Jr. Good evening, fellas. With that, as I talk about Thomas White, Mogul Threads, go check him out. He's the one who does my work for my branding, as you talk about here. This is coming soon. Dr. Cavill's, your caps and stuff like this. Let me show you. Y'all can see that, man. This high quality. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to get that to you so you can represent different ways with Sports Labs. We'll have shirts, T-shirts, polo shirts, caps, as you see. We'll have different things that you can get your hands on. That's coming really soon. But go check him out now. He's still got the mogul threads out there. He has some nice vintage gear out there. So you're going to see the Dr. Cavil, if you would, signature line coming out pretty soon.
Nice.
Part of mogul threads as we do it. Chuck Hunt is in the house representing Monroe, Louisiana. Texas Southern came from 21 points down to defeat Wyoming in Laramie, Wyoming. You sure right, boy. They got it done. 76-74. Got to watch that game streaming, man. That was a good one to watch. Mayo Jenkins, high all. Bring it in here. K. Johnson is 12-1, and it's time for Coach Prime. JSU. Yeah, D.I. Love. That was a nice little breakdown that he had on there. Jarvis Austin is in the house. Craig Gordon, Robin Gordon, Dwight Moore. Just to name a few of the folks that jumped on here early. George Gilbert, Dwight Moore, good evening, gents from the Big D. Go Jags. Yes, Jaguar Nation is in the house. George Atterbury, Kimberly Reynolds, president, national president of the Prairie View A&M Alumni Association. She's a regular now. And yes, I did have my life membership shirt. Shout out. Was happy to get that donation. It came right in the mail. Y'all losing out if y'all Prairie View. Y'all ain't seen that and got your stuff in there. I'm gonna wear that on the next couple of shows. I'm waiting. I think we might have a nice little surprise interview. So if I get that interview, I'm a timing where I can wear the shirt. If not, I'm gonna bring it out a little early, and I might wear it with my cap, purple cap, just so y'all know I'll be on colors. But I'm doing a little love today. I'm a surprise, I guess. This is a throwback shirt that I got from the sale. So I'm gonna see if I can make him smile by bringing that out. Stan Hart is on here. Brian Jenkins. That's Grambling Man, for y'all don't know. Ricky Burden giving us some love. Kimberly says she want that cap. Yes, we're going to make them available. We're going to make them available. Got to represent for the people. And what y'all don't realize is, see, we smart. We know you want to represent your school colors. So we're going to find a way to get them in your school colors. That way you don't have no excuse. You can have your gear on and then represent for the lab and let the world know that you check out the lab. You come to the lab for your HBCU sports news. That's right. AD say he needs two. One for the TU colors and one for FAMU colors. That's what I'm talking about. Like Fred Whitty out here representing Winston-Salem State and the HBCU heritage. No doubt about it. Get it in, Fred. I see you. Winston-Salem State got that news we talked about last week. A&T back on the schedule. Y'all gonna give them that business again? Stan Hardy said, good evening. Yeah. Hey, GSU for life. George Atterbury is representing, DC representing Howard University, home to soon be VP Kamala Harris, no doubt about it. Representing Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority as well, boy. Yes. Anthony Weston, how about the Alabama A&M Bulldogs? Yes, big time victory, both the men's and women's side. Only one other program has been able to say that. That's North Carolina Central. We'll get into a little bit about that. Sherman Miller, Brian Simpkins, UDC in the house, University of District Columbia, 1851 hashtag. Man, I think that's the first time I seen them jump on here representing District Columbia, boy. We big time, boy. Look at all over the place. Yes. Varick Williams, big time Southern fan there, giving him alumni, putting in work. Got a nice little farm to get out there. That boy can get out there and get some work done. I'm going to go get me some of that when we get back in the business to travel. See if I can get some nice fresh vegetables out there out of that garden. You know how it is. J-Mac, you know, he said he got to get it in, that blue and orange. You know that means Morgan State University. Yes. With that, Charles, let me go on and give it to you. I showed out for the people a little bit. Want to show them love after a great holiday break. What news do you have in the HBCU sports world that you want to share with the people?
Tremendous amount of news to get to today, Dr. Cavil. You touched on it, 12, 1, 20. If you see K. Johnson, if you see Maya Jenkins, if you see Wendy Jenkins Bishop, they smile a little brighter today because today was the official start of the primetime era at Jackson State University. So shout out to the Jackson State fans. They're very excited in terms of Coach Prime coming to the I love. So shout out to the Jackson State fans. Kay Johnson, I see you out there. Let's get to some other news. Southern, Kerrick Jackson, he resigns as head baseball coach to take a position with Major League Baseball. So that's a huge blow in terms of Kerrick Jackson leaving Southern baseball. Of course, he put them back on the map in terms of getting back in the championship swing of things. That Southern baseball, a blue blood program within the HBCU ranks, and Kerrick Jackson, he will be moving on to accept a position with Major League Baseball. Dr. Cavil.
Man, that is some big time news. Man, that's a tough one. Obviously, not just for Southern University, but for the SWAC. I mean, we talked about one of the surprise that we thought that you really want to look at with FAMU Bethune-Cookman coming to the SWAC is what it would do for baseball. He revitalized that Southern program. It did dip down. It's one of the rich programs in this conference across HBCU sports under Coach Kadar, legendary coach, got it done. Then you go back to Lou Brock when they're the only HBCU that's won a national championship. Was at the NAIA level. Obviously, want to throw some love to Grambling. They played for 2 championships, but Southern got it done on the diamond. They brought home the trophy officially. Got it done in a lot of ways. So give him a lot of love about that. It's going to be interesting to see what moves they make in terms of that. You know, will they go back outside the program to try to make a hire? Will they stick with, Kadar has had a lot of players that have groomed and stayed in the coaching realm. So does any of his players get a shot? You know, where a coach come over, where a coach think greener pastures that has some success, where they try to move over to Southern. So I'm very interested to see what that looks like in terms of what's going on there. So great point you made. Before we get into our first interview with Coach Pettaway, the Hall of Famer, legendary coach there, and we'll allow him to share some history. I got a surprise for him. I'm going to see if I can make him laugh a little bit, stun him with one. But, he's so good about it. He probably already know. Just gonna chuckle. But what else you got out there before we get into it? Any other big news you want to share?
Sure thing. Let's turn our attention to the MEAC as they announced their weekly men's basketball honors today at North Carolina Central. Redshirt senior guard CJ Kaiser is the first MEAC men's basketball player of the week for the 2021 season, presented by Coca-Cola. And meanwhile, Anthony Tark of Coppin State and J.J. Matthews of Norfolk State are co-defensive players of the week. Let's take a look at C.J. Kaiser real quick. The 6'3" senior from Baltimore, Maryland. He had impressive showings and leading the Eagles with career highs, 33 points and 2 steals and 1 block shot and 1 assist in the 85-78 win over Southern last Thursday. A day earlier, he netted 15 points in a loss to number 5 Iowa. When we take a look at Tark, the 6'6" redshirt senior from Gaithersburg, Maryland, he had a team-high 9 rebounds, 2 block shots, and 5 steals as North Carolina Central Eagles gave Coppin State gave Duke a scare before falling 81-71 on Thanksgiving Day in Durham. And Matthews had a 18-point, 11-rebound double-double in Norfolk State's 83-73 victory over James Madison, a contest in which he had 2 steals, 2 blocks. And for the week, that saw the Spartans defeat Radford. Matthews averaged 10.7 rebounds, 1.5 block shots, and 1 steal. So kudos to those players over in the MEAC.
No doubt about it. Great news there. With that, as you talk about the MEAC, I'm going to jump in here and give some facts and show out a little bit of basketball. My favorite matchup last week, obviously the MEAC had 3 Division I wins, 2 by Norfolk State, 2 of them against what I refer to as historic white college university. Obviously, the other win that we just talked about, North Carolina Central. We got Coach in here. Come on in here, Coach. We got you ready. You smile a little bit. I know you ready to get comfortable. You in the lab, baby. It goes down in the lab now. SWAC men's program have 3 Division I wins, Prairie View A&M, Alabama A&M. That's your Bulldogs there. You can smile again, Coach. Texas Southern University got a win just last night. Then you talk about on the women's side. Yeah, 3 Division I wins by North Carolina Central, Morgan State. UMBC was who Morgan State women defeated. Interesting there, that UMBC is coached by Janetta Hayes Perry. She recently left Texas Southern University for that job over there in the rebuilding. And just to tie in and let you know, see, Coach Pettaway, I do my homework. You know that, Coach. You
yeah. You on top of it. You on top of it.
You stopper. You brought me in your office there, and they say, "Look, man, I'm gonna work with you. We're gonna make this tournament work, boy." And I owe you. Look where I am now. Yeah, with that tutelage. And so you were tutelage people not only on the court but off the court. So I appreciate you. Howard University had the other win. SWAC women have 2 wins. Arkansas Pine Bluff. They play tonight.
Coach Don Brown.
And Central Arkansas. So Alabama A&M women, as I said, those are the only 2 programs where you got Division I wins, both out of the MEAC and SWAC, both on men's and women's. North Carolina Central, both men's and women's got win. And then you got Alabama A&M out of the SWAC. Both men's and women's got wins. You talk about the win for Alabama A&M women. We got to put this out here now. Coach, I'm going to make you smile again. That was the top 11 team now. In-state program. Anytime you get a win over in-state program, Troy, and then mid-major, top 11, 15, I think they're top 11 at the time. You told everybody about this Alabama A&M women team. You said, look out now. So it looked like you looking like you in your old coaching days now. I told you got it going on. But also, Arkansas Pine Bluff had a big win over another in-state rival.
Arkansas State,
Arkansas State. You need to get that in there. But what I want to talk about a little bit before we take a deep dive, and those that don't know, we're going to go back in a little history. My favorite game of the week, though, unfortunately, was not televised, but I watched the game streaming. And we texted a little bit about this, was North Carolina Central. Coach Lavelle Mouton defeats Southern coach Sean Woods 85-78 in overtime. Classic matchup. The game was no more than 7-8 points. First half that was where both teams went on run. Second half, man, it was tat for tat. 2, 3, 4 points either way. Literally last second bucket to tie it up, stops, went to overtime, and then Central just went red hot from the field. They shot like 85% in overtime. They went from like 44% to 51% in overtime, just to let you know how hot they got. Some of the key players in that matchup that you talked about watching that was points. Shivers, Ashante Shivers, 20 points, 7 of 17, 4 for 6 from the free throws. For North Carolina Central, you had CJ Kessler get it done with 33 big points, 12 of 16, 6 of 9. I know you like the numbers like that. You saw some players back in the day put up some numbers. So I know. Jaden Sadler came back as a guard. He had 8 rebounds as a guard now for Southern. 5 defensive rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds, 7 assists, had 3 turnovers. Not too bad, 38 minutes. Jordan Perkins for North Carolina Central, a guard, also had 6 rebounds, 5 defensive rebounds, 1 offensive rebound. He had 4 assists, 3 turnovers. That ratio right there will throw you off a little bit, but 39 minutes. And I bring this up, Coach. Do you recall during your tenure, I think it was your second trip as a Division II SIAC program out of Alabama A&M, going to the Elite 8, playing against North Carolina Central. Obviously, it didn't work out. They defeated you. Did you realize the freshman on that team?
The point guard. Yeah, the point guard. Yeah. And he was the coach on the floor then. He was a coach on the floor then.
I'm in the house. I'm a representative.
Right, I got you.
I brought it out the closet for you, Coach.
Yep. But no, you knew back then that this kid, you just watched what he did on the floor. He was a coach on the floor.
Wow.
So it does not surprise me about his success now, at his alma mater, because he was a coach then as a player.
That's amazing. That's amazing how history goes around. You only get that information in the lab and let you know. Coach Pettaway went. How many Elite 8 appearances you had? 4?
Yeah, I think we had 4, and we had three in a row. That's still a record.
Yep, 3 in a row. But and going into that second 3 in a row, he actually went back as a senior. He was CIAA Player of the Year. Y'all didn't play each other in that one.
Right, correct.
But he made it in the tournament too when you were in the Elite 8 that program.
Right. But you know what? The thing that I like about this matchup, Southern against North Carolina Central, Doc, I told you years ago that we needed to do a HBC preseason tournament. And see, these are the type of matchups that I envision. And I was ready. Alabama State was ready. And we were just trying to get 2 teams from the MEAC for us to do this classic and sign a 4. Yep, we were that close. We were that close to pulling it off. And I still think it needs to happen. I still think somebody needs to look at that because we can have our own tournament. We don't have to rely on these other people for tournaments. We can play the MEAC versus the SWAC. They do it in football. I mean, you know, they had the football game in Orlando to start the season, and then, of course, the postseason. So I'm talking about a preseason tournament where we can play like programs, because I think the biggest thing that you're going to see, if you can play against teams that have the same type budget, you have more success. So a lot of our teams right now, we're going up against the Power Fives. Some of those programs have more money in their recruiting budget than we have our entire budgets.
Sure.
So there's a big difference there. But, you know, we still holding our own because we get an opportunity to play some of these teams in tournaments. So you're not playing on their home floor, so you get a chance to get a win. Just like with Prairie View in Evansville. That was on a neutral site.
Yeah.
So you can get them. You
said it right. I love it. I love it with that, Coach. Before I let Charles jump in here and ask a couple of questions, for those that don't know, we always like to set the stage. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Coach, and then and how you got into coaching.
Well, I'm from Selma, Alabama, and when I played basketball, my parents moved to Indiana when I was like 2 years old. So I started out in the education in Indiana, but I came back to Alabama to live, because we would come back every summer to be with my grandparents. And when my grandfather got sick, I decided to stay. My dad and my mother allowed me to stay in Selma instead of going back to Indiana. So in fact, that's where the connection comes with Coach Woods, because he's from East Chicago. Yeah, it was right around the block. I lived on McCook. He lived on Kennedy, I think. So that's why basketball, man, it takes you so many different places. And so from there, I ended up coming to Alabama A&M to play basketball. And I came back to coach. I coached as an assistant coach under Coach Joe. The athletic director at the time was Gene Bright. And I always told him, I said, Coach, if you all ever get an opening, I want to come back. I said, I like being here. I did pretty good as a student there, as a student athlete. I graduated on time. And I was always in the athletic department doing something. So they gave me the opportunity to come back as an assistant coach, then to come back and coach under Coach Joe. Man, that was awesome, because I got a chance to meet so many other people. Coach Mack. I got a chance to meet Big House Gaines.
Wow.
I mean, all the great coaches, I got an opportunity to meet them because I was always with Coach Joe. You know, we went to every Final Four. I wasn't like the other, well, not all of them, but when I went there, I was there for business, to the Final Four. I wanted to meet people.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to learn stuff. And so I hung around those guys, and that's how they got to know me, because I didn't leave. I was always there, listening at their stories, listening at history, because Coach Mack told me, he said, son, this is how you learn. He said, you're doing a good thing. You got a good man. Stay under Coach Joe. And then when Coach Joe had the opportunity to go to Southern, we had a decision to make. He said, now, Vann, he said, you can stay here or you can come and go with me. He said, what do you think? I said, I don't know, Coach. We don't have much coming back. But since this is my school, I would like to give it a shot. He said, you give it a shot. If they let you run the program, you take it. If they don't, you got a job with me at Southern. And the rest is history.
Wow.
So that's how we did it. That's how we did it.
That's big time, big time. This is Alabama A&M University basketball former head coach and legend, Hall of Fame coach Vann Pettaway. And now I refer to him as a sports historian, particularly with talking about HBCU sports. I've added that to your resume because you are really gifted in terms of the way you tell a story. And it's fascinating. You get to go on weekly, a colleague of ours, Carlos Brown's show.
Right.
And he blessed me and allowed me to sit out there and say, yeah, jump out there and bring Coach on. We need more people to hear what he says. But I just love his whole show. But that segment is just something I dial into, Charles. And We talk
No
about
doubt.
it off air all the time. Just the way you tell your stories, you bring back history, and then you break down different frameworks of sports, and then just the truth that you talk about the athletics that we can't get obviously all the time in terms of the business side of it, which I love to talk about on this show. The way the intricacies you put on the table, man, I just really appreciate it. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Charles to ask a question, and then we'll follow up.
Coach Pettaway, first and foremost, it's an honor to have you on our program. I wanted to start off with the SWAC women, and it was a couple of victories that jumped out for me this past week in terms of looking at what Arkansas Pine Bluff was able to do. Coach Don Brown and Alabama A&M both getting good quality wins. And I know coming into the season, we kind of looked at Jackson State, Texas Southern, and Southern as kind of being the elite. But what does it say about what is going to look like within the conference if you have Arkansas Pine Bluff and an Alabama A&M that's going to be right there in the mix?
Well, I think it's great for the conference. I mean, that's showing the parity in the SWAC this year. And I picked, in the preseason prediction, I told them don't sleep on Alabama A&M now, because I watched those ladies. I did their games last year, so I was able to see firsthand. The Lewis kid, she is tremendous, man.
Ariana Lewis, yeah.
Yep. She can play. Then you got Dark. And a lot of people are sleeping on this. Evans, the big kid that they got that comes off the bench. You're talking about a young lady that's 6'4". She's got size. She can do it all. So they got a veteran team, and then at the same time they brought in some new pieces. So you don't have to deal with Alabama A&M. And then at Pine Bluff, the young lady that transferred from Texas Southern,
Joyce Kennerson,
he's got them in the mix.
Yeah,
got them in the mix. So these two teams, all that does is make the SWAC conference a conference that's going to have to be reckoned with. And it's going to be a great SWAC season. But see, they still got to get through this preseason schedule. Now, you have had some cancellations because of this virus, but the more games they can get under their belt, I think it's only going to help the competition.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. So we're going to go a little bit back and forth between some modern talk in terms of the game stats, and then we're going to go back a little history. So we're going to move back and forth with that and tease the listen. We got Anthony Weston out here. He's our resident big-time Alabama A&M Bulldog. He said, old school Bulldog right here. So he's loving this. Shout out to Kay, and she talked to Regina, said, Regina, you are going to love inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Get ready for your first lecture. That's right. I'm going to have to tag that one.
That's good.
Appreciate you, Kay. Much love to you. Always brings it hot and heavy in terms of comments on the show. With that, I wanted to go a little bit about Ben Jobe, get a little more into that. I know he's dear to your heart in a lot of ways. Rest in peace, Ben Jobe, in regards to that. But talk about succeeding in our framework, a true legend in so many different ways.
It was tough. I was nervous. The only thing that helped me is that was my school, so I already knew the people there. But following in his footsteps was big for me. I was afraid to fail, but he told me I was ready, and he said, "Hey Van, you didn't have to worry about anything, man. You doing it." We lost. We had 5 seniors when Coach Jobe left, so we only had 1 kid that had some experience coming back. But I knew that we had did a good job on the recruiting trail. So all I asked him to do, I said, you can just name me interim. You don't have to even give me the job. Just name me interim and let me prove myself. And by the middle of January, they named me permanent coach at Alabama A&M. And I was Dr. Covington because he was looking for a big name coach. And all I told him was that every big name coach had to get a start somewhere. And I told him, I said, hey, this is my school. And all I'm asking you to do is just give me a chance. And I think we jumped out the gate like 10-2. And the alumni, because I was an alumnus of the school, those people were in my corner and they said, hey, we want to keep a Bulldog in this position. And they did that. And I was able to stay there for that was a total of 29 years because I was there for 25 years as the head coach. So it was a good run for me. I was blessed with some great players, some great coaches, and people that supported our program. So and then Doc, this is what a lot of people don't know about you. I met you because you were trying to do things to help HBCUs. And that's what I liked about you. That, you pulled off the big event in Birmingham with us and South Carolina State. And that's why I tell people, there are people out there that are looking to promote HBCU. We just got to support them. And I want to thank you for what you've done over all these different years, man, because you've been there since day one. And right now, anything that I can do to help you reach some of those goals, I'm here for you. Because
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We as they say, we just getting started. Like, we're gonna put that basketball tournament together. I mean, when we kick the bucket, whatever that looks like, we're gonna have that tournament and we'll see what it does there. And credit to you what you did in terms of those national tournaments. Obviously, everybody wants to get to the big dance, rightfully so. But there are other tournaments and there are teams that do well. And obviously, at this point, the SWAC is a one-bid league, like several other conferences out there. But there are teams that you have put in position and went to bat for them.
Right.
That go in these other tournaments. And we've seen that come to fruition in a lot of ways to the CIT tournament.
Right.
When you're talking about Hampton and Texas Southern literally making it one step away from the Final Four there. The last time you've seen Division I programs other than what you were doing at the Division II level was really before that, back in the NAIA days when teams would go that far in the tournament. So it was fun. And I literally got to go to a couple of those Texas Southern road trips and see what it was like being in the tournament outside of the NCAA. And they were big time games. I mean, I know the NCAA is big time television, and I got a chance to go to that Texas Southern, North Carolina Central game, which was historic. So I was like, I'm making this game because this hadn't happened since District 20.
27 was one of the districts here in Alabama. That Alabama State, Kentucky State, all of them were in that. Lemoyne on. So, but the college insider, that's Joe Dwyer. I've been on the board with him, and I'm on the selection committee. So, I've always rooted for the SWAC, and I still want the SWAC teams to participate. I think it's a great tournament because everybody can't go to the big dance. So anytime you can get in the postseason, and I was proud of Jackson State the first time we put Jackson State in. They had a great run in the CIT. So all of the SWAC teams have done well when they have participated. So my hat's off to them. But Joe Dwyer, he's one of the guys that, he doesn't look like us, but he always looks out for the HBCUs. And I've always been on his, I was on his, when he had they do the top 25 for mid-majors. So I was on that committee where we graded everybody every week. I got my assistant coaches involved so that we can rank all the teams, so that we can always keep our HBCUs close, so that at the end of the season, if they're not in the big dance, they still have another avenue to continue their season. So I think it's great. I think it's great for college basketball to give these kids as many opportunities as possible to continue their careers.
No doubt about it. Before we go to this break, let me tease this up because I got a little surprise for you, Charles, during this break as we get ready for it. This is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment. We're interviewing Alabama A&M University basketball legend, Hall of Fame coach Vann Pettaway. And as you're hearing, some of that sports historian is getting in here. Vann Pettaway career stats, 25 years, you heard it, 453, 279, 8 NCAA tournament appearances, 7 SIAC conference championships, SWAC championship, that was regular season and the tournament, did the trifecta, which is hard in this league, including meaning he got to go to the big dance. So he's done it both at the Division II level and Division I level. Not a lot of coaches can say that. This includes 4 SIAC Coach of the Year, 89, 93, 95, 96, SWAC Coach of the Year, 2005. During his first 11 seasons, the Bulldogs were 263-74, rolling up 8 in 20 win seasons, 7 conference championships, 6 SIAC tournament titles, and traveling to the NCAA Division tournament 7 times, including those 4 trips I told you to the Elite 8. You got to understand this for those that may not be as familiar with the Division I and Division II. When we talk about Elite 8 at the Division II level and the way they play down there, that's like making it to a Final Four. Big time. During part of his period, Pettaway also served dual roles at Alabama A&M as the athletic director. Now, this snuck up on me. I forgot about this, 89 to 92. I was like, boy, it's trouble, big trouble, big time. With that, this is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Watch and Charles Bishop. Coach Vann Pettaway, if you would, stick with us after this commercial break, and we'll be right back to do the second half of the interview.
Off like we choose a king. Gotta start with the Deion.
Must be told, and I've been dirty mango telling.
It's a lot of buzz, let the bees swarm. Gather around, get the seeds warm. Gotta start it off like we choose a king. Gotta start with the Deion.
Must be told, and I've been dirty mango.
Back and forth when you talk about that, trapping on the defensive full court press, up and down. A lot of that was in HBCU sports, but I love that as you transition that over to the SWAC, because the SWAC was moving away from that a little bit. But you knew when the Bulldogs came to it, boy, you was going, you better have your track shoes on because they was going to get it up. And you were able to do that with being so tough on the defensive side of the ball. Talk a little bit about your coaching perspective, where that came from and why that was the way that you decided to play the game in terms of coaching it.
Well, coming up, I had some great coaches. I played for Skin Lewis, who was one of the top JUCO coaches in the state of Alabama. And he was always up-tempo, but he always stressed that we had to get it done on the defensive end. And in high school, Coach Carter, my high school coach, he stressed the defensive end and end of the floor. In fact, if you wouldn't get it done on the defensive end, you weren't going to make the team because he wanted us to play defense. So, and then just looking at the game, I knew that defense was going to be the thing that would get you into the championship game. And then your offense would gel with that, and you can win some things. And as I stayed at Alabama A&M, Coach Jobe and I, we traded scouting reports. While I was still in the SIAC, I still broke down game films and stuff for Coach Jobe. That's what we did. We talk basketball. We live basketball. We'd be on the phone 3 or 4 hours talking about basketball and what to do. He was just, I convinced him to start pressing. I said, Coach, you got the athletes. I know you're up tempo. Man, let them kids press. You'll get the ball more. And they started doing that. He started with Avery. With Avery, they started pressing. I used to know the name of it. He called it his one press. His one press, man, they would get after you at Southern. Yeah. See, I was doing the same thing up at Alabama A&M. So when I came into the SWAC, I just continued it. And then the thing that they couldn't, when I first got into SWAC, the big thing for us was our half-court defense. A lot of teams couldn't tell if I was in a zone or a man-to-man because of the different schemes that we would have. But a lot of times we were in a matchup zone and they thought we were in man-to-man. And it worked to our advantage because if you look at our track record, the first 5 or 6 years in the SWAC, we stayed in it on the defensive end and on the offensive end. We were always in the top 1 or 2. And then in terms of attendance, our people came out because of the style of play. They knew we were going to be up-tempo. They knew we were going to do something exciting on the offensive end. So it was a good match. And I enjoyed my time in the SWAC because you got to think, when I first got in the SWAC, you talking about Coach Whitney, you talking about Coach Moreland at Texas Southern, Coach Plummer out there at Prairie View, and Coach Stoggins at Jackson State, and then, of course, Strill down at Mississippi Valley. So we were always into it with those people. And then, of course, Spivey came into Alabama State. But now Alabama State, they took the lead on me when Lewis Jackson got in there. Spivey and the other guys, I could hold my own, but Lewis Jackson has a winning record against me. And that's how Alabama State took the lead. He would just do things differently, and we never could come out on the top end of that. But it was always a struggle. I love being in the SWAC. These are guys these are lifetime partners, people coaches that you've met during your trip through the SWAC. and I'll always be there for them, man. It was great.
Sure. Go ahead, Charles. Follow up.
Well, I wanted to ask from a foundational standpoint, Coach Pettaway, is there a preference in regards to building your basketball team? I look at Texas Southern, and they build their team through transfers and things of that nature. Whereas you look at Alabama A&M, they more high school guys and kind of grow them through the program. Is there a preference
for that, Charles? There was a reason. See, we couldn't get a lot of the transfers in because of our school rules, not NC2A. Our rules did not allow. This would happen at Alabama A&M. If a student had a D on his transcript, it didn't count in the curriculum, so it wouldn't go towards his progress to graduation. So we couldn't get him in. There were a lot of kids that we recruited we had to play against because we could not get them in Alabama A&M. And that rule is still there. They haven't changed it yet, but I think it's a disservice to the athletic department because they're giving up on a lot of athletes because, coming out of high school and then junior college, kids are not ready when they get there. So they may make a mistake. Now, if you get that D in that class, you can't use that towards your eligibility at Alabama A&M. That's why we had to do it with high school kids. And then the thing that a lot of people didn't know, and I didn't start talking about this until I got out of coaching, I never had all my scholarships at A&M. So it made it rough for me to redshirt kids. I couldn't redshirt them because I didn't have the numbers. I only had 10 scholarships. So I couldn't redshirt a kid. So when we went through injuries, that really hurt our program. But I came up. You don't make excuses. So I never put it out. That never came out until I finished coaching because I would not allow that to be an excuse for me and my staff or for my team. Because you take what you got and you work with it. You work. So that's why I'm even more proud of the success that we had there because we did not have everything. And they just broke ground this month or last month rather on an arena that's long overdue at Alabama A&M.
Yeah, that's going to be big.
Right.
And so part of the legend about you putting that basketball program on the peak or where it finally is getting to do with that new facility. And I'm excited. As you know, my wife is from Alabama A&M, so I have a special place in my heart for the Bulldogs in terms of what's going on there. I want to take it back a little bit because we've been mixing back between the SIAC and the SWAC. Talk a little bit about the similarities, the differences in terms of SIAC and SW, of the SWAC, I should say, not just in terms of Division II, but Division I, but in terms of places, your favorite place to go versus one or the other, the difference in terms of the road trip, those kind of things. Everybody is familiar with the Division I, Division II, but let's go into the heart in terms of the culture, which HBCU fans, I don't care where they at, they can respect it, they can feel that, and they love that. They want that, whether it's in the MEAC, SWAC, CIAA, or obviously the SIAC. But mix it up for us a little bit and talk a bit about that in terms of your favorite place to go in the SIAC versus the SWAC and your best road trips and why.
Okay, now, I can go back to the days when I was in the SIAC as a player. Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, they were in the SIAC. We played each other.
Wow.
I remember Clement Johnson. Clement Johnson at Florida A&M played in the NBA for years. Man, he came through Huntsville and he dunked so hard one day. When they went down the floor and came back, they had to stop the game because the rim was still shaking. and then the coaches, man, you had great coaches. So Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M, we played against them every year. So they were already in the SIAC. So see, the SIAC was a very powerful conference back during that time. And I love playing against those guys. That trip to Florida A&M, we would get Florida A&M, Bethune-Cookman, and then go up to get Savannah, and then on up to Benedict. That was a road trip. That was a trip during that time. But now it was tough now because you had to play. You had to bring your big boy pants back then because the fans were on top of you. You had some great coaches during that time. And it was very exciting. And then, of course, when FAMU and Bethune got out and went to the MEAC, then, of course, they brought in Savannah State and some of the other schools into the SIAC. But Tuskegee, Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Payne, those were the schools that if you want to win a championship, you had to go through them. Lamorne Coach Johnson, one of the greatest coaches to ever lace up a pair of tennis shoes. They just recognized him this past year because he was the first African-American coach to win a championship for the NC2A. He won that at Lamorne. So I had to go through all of those guys, and here I am. I'm 23, 24 years old in the league, battling up against these guys. And see, this is how I know I'm blessed. When you look at it, I'm not bragging, but this is fact. We did not have a losing record against any team. Not one of us. Wow. We never had a losing. Nobody in the SIAC and only 2 or 3 schools in the SWAC can say that they had a winning record against Alabama A&M when it comes to basketball. Only 3 now. So we were blessed. We got good players. We had great coaches. And just to go to Atlanta to play in that environment, man, that was special. That was special. When you talking about attendance, we led the nation. We were either 1 or 2 in the nation in Division II in attendance because we played before sellouts. I kid you not. If you wanted to come into a basketball game in Alabama A&M, you better get there before the halftime of the women's game if it was a doubleheader, because you wouldn't get in. They would turn people away. So when you brought in Tuskegee, when you brought in Albany State to play against Oliver Jones, do you know the tradition that Albany State had? And these are the people that I had to go up against. So I had to learn the game against some legendary coaches early on. So, but what I did and what I learned from Coach Joe, you had to work, man. I didn't go home. I had a coach's office in my house because I had to study film. I had to look to see what our opponent was doing so we would be ready. Now, one of the things Coach Joe taught me is you don't worry too much about your opponent. You be more worried about your own team. Get them ready to play. Let those other people stop you. But just doing the scout report and the things like that to get ready to play these guys, man, it was great. Then to get into the SWAC, to go against Coach Striblin, Coach Plummer, Coach Whitney. Coach Whitney now has a winning record against me. I did not win John at Alcorn until Coach Whitney left.
Oh, wow.
I never won at Alcorn. I took some great teams in there now.
Yeah.
I could not win at Alcorn when he was there. As soon as he left, we turned that thing around.
Yeah, he said you got it.
Yeah, interesting. As soon as he left, we turned that thing around. So, I mean, in the SWAC, I like going down to Southern. Of course, our rival was Alabama State, so playing there was great. But that Texas trip was always tough. Going to play Prairie View and Texas Southern because of the trip. You know, when you try to fly out there, and at the time you go on commercial, you get kids split up and all that. That was a very tough and taxing trip to go from Huntsville, Alabama, out to Houston, Texas. But I really enjoyed it. And Coach Striblin would always be waiting on us at Valley. You know, to go in there and try to win a game, man, was tough because all those people, especially if you played them on Saturday now, they had nothing else to do. So they came out to the game. They came out to the game, so it was tough. And then, of course, going to the reservation to play Alcorn, that was always tough. But I enjoyed it. I still miss it. And when I got the opportunity to do the SWAC games, to go back into these facilities, man, and see the same people, man, that was great for me. That was great. Brought back a lot of memories, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm sure at that point, people didn't see you as the adversary, so people got to really show their love and versus, saying, oh, that's coach, he get it. Now they can say, hey, coach, yeah, we said all that, we didn't mean it. You just another team, and they get to show you love. So that was fascinating. I love seeing when you come in there, and I had the privilege of going those Alabama A&M right during the time with the transition. So I got to see some of the last SIAC games and the first SWAC games, and it was fascinating. You're right. You talk about needing to get in there early. And one thing that was unique, I experienced this obviously, but a lot of times that was with the rivalry games in the SWAC. You know, obviously Prairie View, Texas Southern, you would have those games sometimes against Southern or Grambling when it's on a Saturday. Right. But it was like almost every Saturday, no matter who Alabama A&M were playing in there, you was like, man, you need to get there early. Yep. And that's when I realized my fandom for HBCU sports. You know, I had a connection always coming out of school and loving it and going to the big games. But that's when I know, as they say, that's when I know I fell in love with HBCU sports. And there would be some way that I was going to be connected to it. And again, so I just want to pay hand. We're going to take a quick break and wrap it up, bring you back for the last 10-minute segment of the show. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is out on assignment. We're in our interview with Alabama A&M University basketball legend, Hall of Fame coach Vann Pettaway, and sharing some of that sports historian news like that. We're going to take it back and mix it up just for the last 10 minutes. With that, stick with us as we finish up on this interview. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show. This is Dr. Will inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we said, Mike Washington is on assignment on vacation, and who knows, you know, Mike is always finding a way to get it done. But we're here with the legend, Alabama A&M University coach, legend, Hall of Fame coach Vann Pettaway, and sharing some of the history. But we're going to move it forward a little bit because now we get to tie in a little bit of history as you went back to the SIAC days when FAMU and Bethune-Cookman when SIAC, and now look at this. You transition, bringing Alabama A&M to the SWAC, and now look at how the world has turned. FAMU, 2021, Bethune-Cookman, 2021. They will be a member of the SWAC. And so now you have this unique divisional framework where you have this East and West, 6 teams on each, this merger in some degrees with the SIAC former members, because Alabama State was obviously a SIAC. They joined the SWAC earlier than the last 3. But you talk about that connection and you really want to go all the way back. Even Jackson State, SIAC for a short period of time, way back then. But it's just intriguing. What are your thoughts in terms of this merger, which some people are now referring to as the super conference, with all this history? What are your thoughts from your perspective of this move? And what can we think about some of these games going forward, not just in football, which a lot of people are obviously rightfully so in, but what does this mean in terms of basketball, men's and women's, from your perspective?
I think it was a great move to add Bethune and FAMU to the SWAC. They both have great traditions, not just in football. When you look at baseball, when you look at volleyball, when you look at women's basketball, they both have great traditions. So it can only enhance what was already going on with the SWAC. I think Dr. McClellan has done an outstanding job of bringing these teams in or allowing them to come in to be a part of the SWAC. And I think it can only enhance the brand of the SWAC. I mean, when you look at, this is a super conference when it comes to HBCU. We got all the top teams. The jury's out on what's going to happen with the MEAC. There's talk about them going down and try to get some of the CIAA schools come in. There's even talk about them crossing over, trying to get some of the traditionally white institutions to join the MEAC. So it's going to be interesting. But I think from our fans' perspective, from the coaches' perspective, this is a win-win for the SWAC. It's a win-win for the SWAC. And I'm all for it. And I'm looking forward to it because you're talking about FAMU in basketball got a relatively new arena. We got a chance. In fact, I was the last SWAC school to play MEAC school. I played Florida A&M.
That's right.
When Gillespie was down there, we had a home and home. He beat. I lost the game. I lost by 1 in double overtime. So now, if I'm on the road and I lose by 1 in double overtime, and I only get to the free throw line 7 or 8 times, that'll let you know it's tough. It was tough. But we were battling. But
your pockets wasn't big enough to win that game.
Yeah, but you know, you talking about two institutions that have got a lot of tradition, and it is only going to help the SWAC. You watch, the SWAC is going to take off now, because now you're going to be able to get more media coverage. You probably, I guarantee you, Coach Dr. McClellan and them are looking at trying to come up with a TV deal. They'll probably get it now because you got the East Coast involved now. So I think it'll happen. So it's a win-win situation for the SWAC, and I'm looking forward to it.
Charles, jump back in here.
Yeah, you know, I've always wanted to ask an HBCU historian this question right here. If you had a dream HBCU Final Four, in terms of those legendary teams, who would they be?
Well, like if you were to go basketball now, I would take one from the East Coast. Now, right now, North Carolina Central, well, between Central and A&T, they've been running the MEAC for the last couple of years, right? So I would take A&T from the MEAC. I would also take Central. Then you put them against Prairie View and Texas Southern right now, or Southern. That would be the top 4 teams if you had to do it that way. Because Prairie View, you got to give Prairie View their props now. They won the SWAC for the last two years, so they have to be in there. Texas Southern's on the rise. You got to watch Southern now. I watched Southern against Iowa, well, really, they didn't play a team. They played a person. They played against the guy that's probably going to be the college player
of the year.
Yeah.
But now, as a coach now, I looked at things that Southern was doing. Southern's going to be okay now. They were overmatched against that kid. And the things that he did, he's going to do it against everybody he plays against. All right. So Southern will bounce back from that. So in the SWAC, I feel that Southern, Texas Southern, and Prairie View are definitely the top 3 teams in this league. And I think they can play against anybody.
Sure thing.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you a little time to give a shout out to your fans, but particular to your players that were so special over the years. I know we can't give you enough time to name all of them, but if you name some of them, want to give you that chance. And before I do that, Dr. Holmes, Roderick Holmes, big time mathematics professor over there at Texas Southern University, he said Coach Betty Austin was a hell of a volleyball coach.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was.
About that. So that history, people just love to bring that up. But go ahead. I want to give you some time to talk about some of those great players that helped you get some of those numbers that you got.
Okay, well, when you talk about the SWAC, Obi Trotter was voted the SWAC player of the decade. He's the
some Obi Trotter.
He can get it.
The guy that led me to my SWAC championship. He came when the program was actually on the brink, and so to get him in there, you know, that was great for us. And then of course you got Desmond Cambridge, who was another point guard that led the nation in steals. Then you got Mikael Gladden. He led the nation in blocks. He still got the record for most blocks in one game. So over the years, we've had some great players. And then you look at Willie Hayes. He started it all. He was my first point guard. Willie Hayes started it all for me. Ended up going to the Nets. Willis Reed was the coach then. And I remember when he called me, he said, man, where do you get this young man from? But at the time, they had Mookie Blaylock from Oklahoma. So he was their big draft choice. And Hayes gave him the business. And then when he tore his knee up, that really hurt his chances up there. Then, of course, Andre Wagner. These are all guys that came into Alabama A&M. They put us on the map. On the map. And then, of course, Craig Lottie came in at point guard. He broke all of Hayes' records. So he's the all-time assist leader. Then the scoring leader, DeArtis Goodman. He leads Alabama A&M in scoring. He put the most points on the board. So we've had some great kids that come through that institution. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the coaches. I'm proud of the people that supported us because we had a great run while we were there. We did what we could with the with the money and the resources that we had. And I'll tell you all this. A lot of the HBCUs can do a lot better if they had the resources. They have some great coaches. They just don't have everything they need. They don't have the recruiting budgets. They don't have the facilities. See, it's more than just an arena. How many of our schools got training tables for these athletes? How many of them have nutritionists? You know, that's right. There are so many different moving parts. How many of them got their dedicated academic people?
Sure.
To help keep the kids eligible. There are a lot of
Coach, I'm gonna close out on this. Great interview. We can't wait to get you back. Appreciate your time. I know it's valuable. Really appreciate you. And again, I think everything that you've done for HBCUs, what you've done for me in terms of what people are seeing in fruition now. Hopefully we made you proud in terms of what you've seen coming on the show. Want to leave this with you. Willie Alex Hines says, North Carolina Central, A&T of the MEAC versus Prairie and Texas Southern the SWAC. Wonderful tip-off class. Make that happen next year.
That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do.
We tell you, we're working at it. We tease you a little bit because we care, because we're putting out there. But there's a reason and a method to our madness. Don't be surprised when we can find a way to pull this off. We're going to get through this pandemic. Everybody be safe, mask up, social distance. Talk to your loved ones. Call them up. Put them on the phone. Do the Zoom. There's a way that you can keep up and see folks, and we're going to keep bringing you these great conversations. So with that, Coach, I want to tie you up. I want to say thank you for your time. We'll have you back, and, you know, we'll be texting and calling off and keep doing the great work that you're doing with Carlos Brown Weekly. Love that segment. Look forward to hearing that this week coming up and the weeks to come. Again, thank you so much for your time, Coach.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach.
That'll do it for us. Alabama A&M basketball legend, Hall of Fame Coach Vann Pettaway, our sports historian that we bring it. We'll tap it off. We'll bring back. We're coming up, closing up at the top of the hour as we close the show terrestrial KCOH 1230 AM radio side out on our KCOH feed from our inside the KCOH 1230 AM studios with Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in a beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. We'll be back with you shortly. That'll do it with our interview with Coach Vann Pettaway, Hall of Fame coach, legend, Alabama A&M University Bulldogs.
Yep.
Go Bulldogs.
Thank you.
Go Bulldogs.
HBCU Sports Lab radio show. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Coach Vann Pettaway. We're going to close up and bring you some of that other news that's out there and bring it back to you a little bit as we give you our last 15, 20 minutes of the show. Let's break it down, some of the more news that's out there. I broke down your thoughts and didn't get your reaction to that with the Division I wins, that matchup between North Carolina Central and Southern. You got to follow that in a lot of ways. What were your thoughts in terms of that game to give some people some insight? Like I said, we did it on Game Tracker. One of those games that you, hate was not streamed or televised. But, man, it was I can't talk enough about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ashanti Shivers going against CJ Kaiser, two of the better guards in the MEAC and in the SWAC. In this matchup, you had Ashanti. He went for 20 points in that game, and CJ Kaiser, he took over overtime, 33 points. So talk about a tremendous matchup with two of the preeminent programs in both the MEAC and the SWAC. And, Dr. Cavil, I mean, we've talked about it on a constant. We just would love to see more matchups like this where, you get a Central or an A&T versus a Texas Southern or a Prairie View or a Southern. So, just to actually get a chance to see one of these type matchups, that was tremendous.
No doubt about it. It's going to be fun. We got to get more of those games. With that, I want to ask you a little bit. Coppin State team, veteran Coppin State team, older team. Coach K, Duke, as a lot of folks know, had their way with them and played with them. It was only 81-71 victory for Duke. This is a top 10 team. Many people think they're going to go deep in the tournament. Coach K quoted was saying Juan had his team really well prepared. He said after the game, they're old, they're men. It reminded me of Stephen F. Austin last year, and people don't realize Stephen F. Austin defeated Duke last year with that major upset, one of the first home losses for Coach K in I don't know how many years, getting it done credit. So when he brings that up type of name, and it was funny because Juan that played in Maryland gave Duke the business when he was there, when Juan got it done and cut down the nets for the Maryland. So I think he was thinking that he was still playing in some way. He's like, I don't know why I signed up for this match. But Coach K can take care of his business. He can afford those kind of games, even a tough loss here and there. But with that saying, my question for you, people may have forgot, we do the top 5 teams. Coming in out of the preseason, Coppin State had 4 or 5 wins last year, more than any other program. Couple of them were against Power 5 schools. Is he going to be able to train it this year where, because it seemed to fall apart, injury or two, when they got into MEAC play, and not to take anything away from the other MEAC teams because they brought the business. We already talked about what Coach Mouton does in terms of his history as a player and now as a coach getting it done there. Don't want to leave out Norfolk State. They've been getting it done in a lot of ways, and they have 2 big wins. Only Division I HBCU program that has 2 Division I wins this season thus far against their in-state rivals. That's something that's going to come up in fabulous article on HBCU Game Day talking about this pandemic is forcing teams that would find a way to run away from Norfolk on the schedule, and now we seeing why with that. Right. But my question for you with Coppin State, are they going to be in the business this year, particularly for the MEAC North? They may play all teams now with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman. The women, FAMU are not playing, and the men will play in the MEAC this year for as they get ready. But what are your thoughts on this Coppin State team?
One of the nuggets that I've listened to with Coach Pettaway when he's on the Carlos Brown show is to always pay attention to the roster, especially when it's an older roster, when it's more mature guys on the team. And that was one of the things when I was doing my research and deep dive into teams in the SWAC and MEAC this year, is Coppin State jumped out with regards to the seniors on the team. And Coach K, to his credit, he mentioned it. That was a mature team, a physical team. So I really look for Coppin State to kind of be up in that upper tier of MEAC teams. And you mentioned it last year, whether it was injury or whatever, but they faded within conference play. And it was a little bit surprising because they had some quality wins to start the season off last year.
Exactly. So I got my one eye on Coppin State. I want to see what it is. Something tells me that this team is going to be pretty good. I think last year was just an accident, if you would, in terms of some key injuries and them not being able to transition to how they got up for their non-conference opponents and thought they probably were going to move through the MEAC, if you would. And they've learned their lesson in a lot of ways. So I think their focus, this is a team that you're going to have to keep your eye on. Obviously, Norfolk State is going to be right there. North Carolina Central. A&T was a road loss away from taking the regular season last year. So they're going to try to make a statement as they're exiting out of the MEAC. They would love to cut down the nets that final time for the MEAC. And this is a program in the MEAC that had a rich tradition in terms of obviously the 80s, late 70s, and while they were in CIAA also and all the time. So that's interesting to see what's going to go on in the MEAC.
Cameron Langley, one of the top players in the MEAC for North Carolina A&T. So they're going to be a tough team to deal with in that conference.
And it's going to be fascinating on the women's side over there. Obviously, we talked about North Carolina Central getting a big win. It's going to be fascinating to see what goes on in the MEAC. Norfolk State should be back in the mix in terms of what's going on. Obviously, Bethune-Cookman would have been in that picture.
Yeah,
One team that's taking a step out. But it's going to be fascinating to see what's going to take place, if you would, in terms of the MEAC on the women's side. Watch out for Morgan State. I mean, they got to win Division I, so they're going to be in the mix. It'll be interesting to see what's going on there. I know you'll love this conversation here, Charles. You're big time in terms of golf aficionado, like to play weekend warrior. To say you get out there and get your exercise in on the golf scene. The real winners of the Capital One's match are HBCUs. Team Mickelson and Charles Barkley defeated Peyton Manning and Steph Curry in terms of this year's Capital One's the match champions for change. Mickelson closed it out with a birdie on the 15-hole match. 4 and 3. Mickelson selected Jackson State as the recipient of any HBCU additional donations earned during the golf competition. Howard University for Curry. Tuskegee was represented by Barkley, and Grambling State, Southern University of New Orleans, I should say, and Lane College. In terms of Manning representing that triad with his home in New Orleans, and obviously playing a great bit of this college at Tennessee. You can see where he picked those in the relationship he had with Grambling. Much respect there. Mickelson recently donated, beyond what he generated there, $500,000 to Jackson State University. It looks like they may be trying to revitalize the great history program there in terms of golf, both on the men's and women's side a lot of way under Coach Payton. Getting it done a lot of way. Legendary Walter Payton's brother, Payton, in terms of what's going on there. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. My understanding, over $5 million generated. It's almost $250,000 if you break it down per institution. I'm not sure how they're breaking it down. That's what it averaged to. The number of HBCUs are represented. Significant money in terms of what's going on there. So credit to all of those involved.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
It was a fun golf exhibition to watch in terms of Phil Mickelson and Charles Barkley having fun out there, watching those celebrities kind of talk trash to each other. Peyton Manning, kudos to Peyton Manning for the branding in terms of putting on each of the HBCUs hats that he was representing. So that was noticeable. And just to have expose HBCUs to a completely different audience that might not hear of a Tuskegee or a Jackson State or things of that nature. And I thought TNT did a great job in terms of they brought Coach Prime in. He was talking while Phil was hitting, things of that nature, in terms of talking about why he wanted to donate to Jackson State and donate his time and efforts, if you will, towards the HBCU culture. So I thought that was tremendous. And then, of course, we know what Steph Curry has done with the Howard golf program. So it will be interesting to see. I know Vice President of Intercollegiate Athletics, Ashley Robinson, one of the things that agenda items, at least for him, is to get that Jackson State golf program back up and running, which I think would be huge because Jackson State has a tremendous history with all the golf championships that Coach Eddie Payton won, both on the men's and women's side, and to turn out 2 or 3 golf pros as well.
Yeah, so officially it was $4.4 million. I think they actually had a little more at the end there, but it goes to 20 HBCUs, including TMF, Thurgood Marshall Fund, and United Negro College Fund. Thurgood Marshall for the public institution HBCUs, and United Negro College Fund for the private HBCUs. People may not recognize the designation of those two foundational organizations that generate money for HBCUs in terms of students coming in for scholarships. So that was big time in a lot of ways. You talk about Peyton. He also had the logos on his golf cart in the front. And so I thought that was big. He did a very good job in terms of, me, I'm always looking at the branding mechanism. Getting back to Jackson State. Can't keep them out of your mouth. That's a good thing. Deion Sanders in Jackson State pulls another SEC transfer. Former Missouri offensive tackle Dylan Spencer announced his intention to transfer to Jackson State on Thursday afternoon, that past Thursday. He did a video on Twitter with a video featuring clips from the Sonic Boom in the South. Spencer's the second former FBS offensive lineman to commit to Jackson State. Beefing up that line, always nice to have that. The other one was former Florida international offensive tackle Maljon Joy announced he would transfer earlier this week. And so it's fascinating to see what he's pulling together. Obviously, you had the former Tennessee linebacker Niles Gaddy, Florida State defensive back wide receiver Isaiah Bowden coming over there. So he's able to get some of these players in there. Mississippi State defensive back Javarius Selman was his first commit. Deion Sanders is not just talking the talk. Obviously, he's doing a lot of amazing things off the field, but he's quietly, if there's such a thing, getting a lot of players in that are committing to what he's doing, which will be fascinating to see in terms of, in my opinion, not just he can turn it around, but maybe how fast he can turn it around. What are your thoughts in terms of what's going on with Jackson State? It's continuing. It kicked off with that big event. People were excited, but now you're seeing the work starting to matriculate in and going through. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is the players that he's bringing in, their ties to Mississippi in terms of talking about Miles Jones-Jure, who was an all-state standout at Callaway, who played junior college ball in Mississippi. And I've talked about the importance of junior colleges in the state of Mississippi, where at times you have 4 and 5 nationally ranked junior colleges in the state of Mississippi, and to be able to kind of tap in to the junior college rank. Miles Jones-Jure went from junior college down to Florida International, is bringing him back in. You also bring back in Dylan Spencer, who was a standout at Madison Central right around Jackson. Javarius Selman played at Jackson Provine. So to bring guys that probably, if we take a look at it, would have been at Jackson State in the 80s or the 90s to start tapping back in to the talent base that's in and around the state of Mississippi. That's huge for Jackson State, because I think that's one of the things that we've seen as we get into the SWAC championship era, that they start to lose. They start to lose on that talent base. And interestingly enough, Alcorn was able to kind of pick up on I think what the winds of change, if you will, in Mississippi, whereas you did not have that talent going to HBCUs. Alcorn, I think you saw a lot of times they went to the state of Florida and they were able to bring guys over to Alcorn. So to tap back into the talent that's within the state, that's huge for Jackson State, huge going forward.
No doubt about it. We got some tough news after that great information and great news there for a lot of people, at least. Tough news in terms of McCord Maker is on pause. The 5-star freshman shut down indefinitely with a nagging groin injury. Maker had 11 points, also added 8 rebounds and a block in debut against Belmont. That's a very tough Belmont team. It's officially what I call a mid-major program. So no dispersion in terms of that. That was on Thanksgiving. Then he played Queens. He had 12 points on that. And this is, injured now. 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Didn't play a lot that game. Still put up 12 points against Queens College. That is a Division II program. That game came about with some cancellations. Again, you'll see that kind of thing. But for people that don't realize, it's a Division II program, top 10 in the country. Not to say that you want to see how it get done, but Kenneth Blakeney figuring it out, but he said, quote, he's been banged up for a minute. He's been trying to fight it, way through it, but blatantly a couple of times I pulled him out of the game. He wants to be there for our team and his teammates. I'm trying to trust him as much, but sometimes you have to help people who can't help themselves because of so much and how bad they want to get it done. Kudos to the coach for making this move. It's going to be tough. Yeah. A lot of people are going to question it. A lot of people are going to rub this in the different ways, but I think this is some of the culture that you see at an HBCU often that you don't see at what I refer to historically white colleges, that is bigger than the player and what he can do for you immediately, no matter what the fanfare and went through it. That I think that this in a lot of ways is a bigger statement in regards to what's going on. And as a believer, what's meant to be will be. And I think kudos in regards, again, to the coach for making a certainly tough decision. And if this happens to be the end, I'm not sure it is, but if it happens to be the end, the fact that he pushed in that direction, you never know what that means for the next one. Sometimes people forget that, the battle, the war, however you want to frame this, or, a house is not, pyramids, all those different proverbial terms is not built in a day. That it's going to take steps to get in the direction. And sometimes it's the fact that you take a step in the right direction. In my personal opinion, in terms of you doing things that are bigger than you, sometimes are rewarded in different ways. So wanted to get your thoughts and your perspective on that.
Very unfortunate with regards to McCord Maker in terms of getting injured, but I think you touched on it. Kudos to Coach Blakeney in terms of shutting him down or having that foresight to help the young man to help himself get back right, if you will. And like you said, whether we see him again in a Howard uniform, we're not sure, but in some ways, him choosing Howard was bigger than just basketball. And I think that's the big thing that I kind of take a look at. And it's like you said, it's a different framework than what we look at with historically white colleges and universities in terms of how they go about doing it. Maybe we do things a little bit different. And I think you've had some sloppy journalism taking shots at Howard's program in terms of not having whatever the resources or the foresight or things of that nature. But, unfortunate.
Yeah, I think, folks will get what they get in regards to whatever that was. And for me, I don't even waste my time on it, but I certainly understand the need to get that point across. With that said, as we come to a close and we close up, any thoughts that you had that you want to share, final thoughts on the show today?
Yeah, really excited about some of the games that were played. Kudos to Coach Don Brown at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff getting that out-of-conference win, and we celebrate those out-of-conference wins. Alabama A&M, both men's and women, able to get out-of-conference wins. And, of course, that huge matchup between North Carolina Central and Southern, would definitely love to see more of those. So.
Great point that you make there in so many different ways. As we talk about it, let me see if I can give you a quick update since you bring up Coach Brown in terms of that. They're losing 6:33 in the quarters, 49-40, still in the match, 6:33, just to give everybody an update there. See if they can get turning around and pull, come from behind in this case and get it done in a lot of ways. But yes, 6:33 left in the third quarter. Central Arkansas is up 49-40 over Arkansas Pine Bluff. So they'll continue to fight and continue to get it done. We'll continue to give you the basketball men's and women's updates. What else do you have for us there, Trent?
Matchup tonight between Morgan State and Lincoln.
Great point. That's the Division I, Division II matchup, MEAC and CIAA. That'll be fascinating to see what goes on there in that matchup. We'll keep you going in terms of what that looks like in terms of the matchup. That's actually has went final. Morgan State won that game 102-94. High scoring contest. Morgan State got it done. But another one that you bring that up, this is a Big South game in the waiting as in 2001. As we know, North Carolina A&T is moving to the Big South. They're playing Charleston Southern. They're up 45-34, 14-29 in the second half. That is on ESPN Plus. Just scored 47-34, giving you timely updates there as we'll see what brings on there. I'll turn that in and I'll be able to give you a full report on what that looks like next weekend as we continue to see some of these matchups going forth. Certainly would have loved to see that Prairie View, North Carolina, Wilmington. That game was canceled. As we see COVID, you'll see that all year long in terms of that, making sure athletes are safe as I can see it. But that'll do it for us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. For all those that turned in, thank you for joining us and getting your lab fix in. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Hope you enjoyed our interview with Coach, legend, Hall of Fame, Vann Pettaway of Alabama A&M University. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday from 6 o'clock on Tuesday. We look forward next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. We want to give a special shout out to Carlos Brown.
Yes, indeed.
We're with you. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Happy Founders Week to the bros.
Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that SWAC, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee, stay, tune into the HBCU Sports Lab, which I